If you've ever asked yourself how much Flo and Eddie is too much Flo and Eddie, Carnegie Hall, the 4 CD set, might just answer that question for you. What's up, people? Happy spring break for those of you also on spring break. My name is Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, currently ranking and reviewing every single Frank Zappa album released after he passed in December of 1993. I've done all the during his lifetime ones elsewhere on this channel. And we are currently on number 35, Carnegie Hall. This was a pretty recent release, about 10 years ago. Halloween, it came out on Halloween 2011. It is a 4-disc set. It is 2 concerts at Carnegie Hall in New York City. It's the Flo and Eddie era Mothers. The 71 band is when this was. So this is not the one with Jeff. This is different than Mother's 70. Jeff Simmons and George Duke had left the band. And instead of them, we now have Don Preston came on to play keyboards, and then Jim Pons came on to play bass. But other than that, you have Ian Underwood, Ainsley Dunbar on drums, Flo and Eddie, and then Zappa. It's in mono, so it's probably, I'm not going to say it's a bad sounding recording. It's not bad. It's completely listenable, but it probably is one of the poorest sounding recordings of the ZFT that they have released. But it's still in no way inhibits me from listening to it. I don't think it should in any way inhibit anybody from listening to it. The music is still completely discernible, and it's not like headache inducing or anything. But this disc does answer the question, how much Flo and Eddie is too much Flo and Eddie. And 2 shows back to back just maybe too much Flo and Eddie. There are parts of these discs I absolutely love. I think from a fan, hardcore, obsessive perspective, this needed to be released. It has, like Playground and Psychotics, it has another full-length version of Billy the Mountain. This is by far the longest Billy the Mountain. This Billy the Mountain clocks in, this is not a joke, at, when all is said and done, at 47 minutes, over 47 minutes for this Billy the Mountain, including a little bit of an introduction in the beginning, but not a very long one. That does include like 13 minutes of solos right in the middle, right during the Studebaker-Hawk section. I've always argued that Studebaker, I haven't always argued, but recently, I kind of always thought that Studebaker-Hawk, even back when I was listening to these on tapes, Studebaker-Hawk should have been taken out of this song and performed as a standalone piece with just solos. It's great melodies. It's a great song. It almost sounds like a real song you would hear on the radio. Flo and Eddie are wonderful on the vocals. So when you finally get to the Studebaker-Hawk section, like 20 plus minutes in, that's really good. But really, also, there's Billy the Mountain. There's also, this is the only release, if I'm not mistaken, the full-length version of the Divan Suite, the Sofa Suite. You got Once Upon a Time in Sofa number 1, and you can't do that on stage anymore. 1, you got to stick it out on Joe's Garage, but here you get all of those pieces together, including the sort of musical interludes and all the talking that goes with it. And that entire thing is close to 15 minutes long, but man, is it longer than 15 minutes? It is. It's about 17 minutes long, but it's a lot longer 17 minutes than I think the Billy the Mountain 47 minutes is. So 2 live shows in mono of the Flo and Eddie band. There's, again, some things on here that I'm glad I heard, some things on here that I really like. There's a 30-minute King Kong that's just monstrous. Again, that's got a whole bunch of solos. Don Preston gets a chance to do his electronic weird stuff. Ian Underwood gets a chance to shine. Dunbar, of course, gets a solo. Frank coming out of Dunbar solos. I think that's one of really a great passage of music. Frank's solo is pretty long, but it's very, kind of goes in a lot of different places, and he takes his time, and there's different kind of grooves that get set up, and it's a really, really enjoyable sort of solo, post-drum solo jam to make that just a worthwhile listen. But both of those things, the solos from King Kong, along with a little bit of the solos from Pound for a Brown, which is on here, are actually on Finer Moments as the old not as the old Curiosity Shop. Those are the Billy the Mountain solos as the Subcutaneous Peril. So those are elsewhere on a weaker album, but you do get just those solos and not have to listen to the rest of Flo and Eddie. So anyways, this is a really good representation of the Flo and Eddie 71 band. I really kind of don't think you need anything else. The only thing that would be different is the quality of the solos and the quality of the performances and maybe the quality of the sound. But this is a really good snapshot of this band. And I'm just coming to realize that I always felt there were like gaps in the Flo and Eddie era. Like there is a single release out there that's going to completely redeem like the Flo and Eddie era and make it like much better than I ever thought it was. Mother's 1970 kind of came close to doing that. But as far as the 71 version of the band goes, this is probably your best snapshot. I mean, it's, 4 CDs long, though. The first 28 minutes of the first CD is the opening act, which was the Persuasions, an a cappella group. They have a Frank Zappa cover album, really good stuff. It's all mostly covers, stuff you'll probably recognize, some like deeper tracks, some like Deep Temptations tracks, some deep like Ashford and Simpson type stuff. But for the most part, you'll remember them. It's good performances, a little like preaching going on in there, but it's a good little snapshot. It's a good little opening to this. Again, you can skip it. It's on a CD. I heard there was going to be a release and so that's why it's 4 CDs. I heard there was going to be a release where it was reduced to 3 and the opening act was taken out. I haven't seen that released yet, so I'm not sure if that ever came to be. I'm not sure, maybe Carnegie Hall doesn't sell enough for them to warrant doing that. But, so apart from the opening act, this is what you get on disc 1. You get sort of the first 28 minutes of the first show. You get the opening where Frank addresses the audience, and you get the typical run that this band would do. Colony Vegetable, it's a pretty good Colony Vegetable. The neat thing about this is listening to sort of the post-solo improv and, how they would kind of just fool around and joke around. Then you get Anyway the Wind Blows, which was the common follower during this tour. It wasn't Eddie, Are You Kidding? That was I think that was performed very few times. That was not a regular song. So that's interesting that made it on Just Another Band from LA. It was normally this sequence: Colony Vegetable, Anyway the Wind Blows, Magdalena, and Dog Breath. The Magdalena, which is a controversial song that I love because of the topic, is, apparently it's about, so a businessman has the hots for his daughter. Apparently Frank read an article about that or something and turned it into a song. It is an uncomfortable listen if that kind of thing offends you. But the really neat part about this Magdalena is you get to hear, if you compare it to the Just Another Band from LA, is the way Howie would improv that section, that last 2/3 of it, or not the last 2/3, but that last third where he goes, Magdalena, 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 daughter of the, and you can see the certain things that he always did. Like he almost always starts with daughter of the, but then he changes it, and instead of reflecting something that's in LA, this one reflects something in New York. And then there's always the let's go down, and then instead of referring to a bunch of Los Angeles references, as he does on Just Another Band from LA, it's a bunch of New York references. And then he eventually, he kind of goes through that. Then he gets to the part where he's walking down the hall and he apologizes to her, and his mom's at the bridge. So there's little things like sort of signposts that he has to get to, mile markers. But how he gets to those is completely different in this version as it is on the Just Another Band from LA version. So that's kind of a neat reason why to have this. And then the Dog Breath just sounds great, as it always does. Then side 2 is the rest of the first show. So you get a Peaches in Regalia, Tears Begin to Fall, as it sounds like on Fillmore West. Then you get a Shove It Right In suite, the 3 songs from Shove It Right In, as you could hear on You Can't Do That on Stage Volume 6. It's too early in the morning here, people. You can see the sun is literally coming up as I'm doing this. Then you get the 30-minute King Kong. I love the King Kongs from this band. I think that intro, when it first starts to go and they come in and start playing it, is one of the best. I think the 70 was slightly better, but this is a pretty great King Kong and well worth checking out. And then the encores are the 200 Motels finale, pretty much the same performance as you can hear on Stage 6. Little slight changes, how he kind of improvises a little bit. And then the phenomenal Who Are the Brain Police. This is not the freak out version of Who Are the Brain Police. As Frank once described it, this is the canned heat version of Who Are the Brain Police, which is interesting that he said that because the guitarist for Canned Heat used to play with Frank and actually recorded a bunch of freak out songs. As you can hear that on Joe's Corsage. Is that the one I have not done yet? My favorite one. But yeah, so there's a Canned Heat connection to Zappa and the Mothers. So this is the Canned Heat version of Who Are the Brain Police. And it's like, I mean, I would imagine that if you were in the audience at this show and had not heard this and they started playing the song as an encore, you would have no idea what's going on until all of a sudden they start singing the lyrics. You're like, wait, what? What? Who are the brain? It's a fun song. Flo and Eddie give it their best. It's just a straight up rocker. Not ominous at all. It's not going to give you nightmares like the original might, but it's a good listen. So this first show is a really good, solid show. I mean, you got a lot of good guitar solos, a good long improv section, good song choices. If it had been a single disc, it'd probably be ranked higher. But it is this second disc that I'm like, ooh, or the second two discs, the last two discs, where things really start to kind of slow down a little, at least for me. And I'm glad I heard them, but I don't go back to this well to drink hardly at all. So you get an introduction, and then Frank says that, hey, because this is a back-to-back show, we're going to do a bunch of different stuff. You get 17 minutes of the Devon Suite. So you get Once Upon a Time, you get Sofa Number One, you get something called The Magic Pig where there's talking and more like weird singing type, interlude type stuff. Then you go into Stick It Out, which... not sure which version is better, this version or the Joe's Garage version. They're both very interesting. Not much difference between them, but yeah, it's interesting to hear Flo and Eddie sing Stick It Out. Then Devon ends with like 4+ more minutes of kind of talking and wrapping up the story. Then they go into Pound for a Brown, kind of short Pound for a Brown, about 6 minutes, but really good. Into Sleeping in a Jar, which is always great to hear. Into Wonderful Wino, Charlena, Cruising for Burgers, which is a pretty typical sort of trio that would get put together. I love all those songs. Those are 3 of the best songs that Flo and Eddie did. They kind of, the Pound through Cruising, the last 5 songs on this disc kind of wash away the sort of stale aftertaste of Devon. I don't like the Devon Suite. I'm glad I heard it. I don't think it's very good. Frank was wise to drop all of it except for the sofa part, which is truly beautiful. And then the final disc, disc 4, is... the first 3 tracks are the Billy the Mountain. You get 28 minutes of Billy the Mountain before you get to the solos. Then you have about 13, 14 minutes of solos, and then they come back and wrap it up with another 5 minutes of Billy the Mountain. If you like Billy the Mountain, the best part about this is comparing the sort of LA references in the originally released version to the, New York references that are here. That's kind of fun. There is one really, really, really neat part that was not included on Just Another Band from LA, in which Mark and Howie do this thing where they're like, they're describing something that like Studebaker Hawk needs or something, and he's like, 1 hen, 2 ducks, 3 squawking geese, and then it's like 1 hen, and then they both say 1 hen, and they both say 2 ducks, and it gets longer and longer, and they get faster and faster, and they do it in unison, and it's this really long, elaborate list, and this goes on for several minutes. It's really impressive. It obviously took a lot of time to rehearse and practice and get that down. It's really neat. It kind of is one of the things that Frank edited out of the original. So that's another reason why, if you're hardcore into Frank, it's worth checking this out just to experience that. And all the other little differences that are thrown in that Frank edited out to make the original version a little more palatable. Obviously he had probably LP side limitations and he couldn't release a 45-minute one without splitting up obviously on the 2 sides, but here the ZFT can. And then the encores, then you get Billy the Mountain and close out. The encores are an introduction to the Mud Shark and the Mud Shark. You don't get the little house I used to live in that preceded the Mud Shark. You just go directly into the Mud Shark. So I'm not a big Mud Shark fan. It's kind of a downer way to end the show. It's long, there's a little jamming at the end, but it's still the Mud Shark. So anyways, that's this album. If you're a Flo and Eddie fan, this is probably one of your favorite things, or you will absolutely love this. Really, if you are a Flo and Eddie fan, the weakest part about this probably is the mono mix, you know, just because it's a mono mix. And this band always has been kind of dominated by Dunbar's drums. They seem to take up a lot of space. Plus, there wasn't a lot of instrumentation going on. You had the keyboardists, Frank on guitar, which obviously he did not, wasn't, he did a lot more here than he did in, you know, than he would in later years, but still this sound of this band seemed to be dominated by Dunbar. But anyways, that's it. Carnegie Hall, number 35. I listened to the first two discs way more often than the latter three, but I'd like to know your opinion on this, what you think about it. Did not think I would ever be able to talk for 15 minutes about Flo and Eddie and care, but I did. So anyways, that's it. Let me know what you think about this. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, because the algorithms and all that stuff helps like other people do it and spread the love of Frank and all that stuff. So anyways, thanks for watching. Take care. Peace. Talk to you later.